Hey guys, Matt here, and oh boy was I about to take a huge Hulkbuster-sized dump on Marvel's Avengers in this review, when I realized that the most profitable roster of superheroes finally got a huge AAA release, only to be dumped into a completely unnecessary live service platform in one of the most buggy and boring games I've played in the last few years. But just let me explain first. The first time I've started the game, I tried to optimize it for my PC, and when I finally got it working, it looked like this. And then it started running like this. And then it crashed over and over and over, and one time with a lot of nice colors. Then all of a sudden character models didn't load in, which was honestly pretty funny at some points.
Steve. Nat. God, it's good to see you.
Listen, if I had known you were...
Then complete environments just weren't there. Then it was just a lot of glitches and bugs, and after 25 hours of playing, I realized most of that happened because the game lies about the minimum requirements you need, so I had to upgrade my RAM in order to make everything work properly. But then I started asking myself, was this really my PC's fault? Or is this game just another example of a franchise with so goddamn much money that they think they can get away with releasing a half-assed end product and finish everything after release? Well, let's just find out in my sort of review, but also Easter eggs in Marvel's Avengers. So as always, I'm going to talk about the story first, then I'm going to talk about the gameplay and how the game is running, and finally I'll sum up some of the Easter eggs I could find in this game. Of course, there will be spoilers. And I really want to emphasize the spoiler alert this time, because I do not want to ruin the only thing in this game for people that is actually worth your time. So you start off as this girl. She's called Kamala Khan, and she got into a competition to write a comic book about the Avengers. All contestants get invited to the Chimera, which is a huge flying aircraft carrier from which the Avengers always work. In very slight contrast to when I wrote a story about superheroes for my teachers back when I was 5 years old, the Avengers actually do read all of these subscriptions, and apparently they really liked her story.
The sewer lizards, yeah.
Yeah. Thor really got a kick out of that one.
So on the Chimera, she has to collect several comics, and she meets this boy who's actually really nice and is willing to trade his doubles if possible. But there are also these dicks who say mean things to you, but then get completely destroyed by Kamala.
What?
Who said that? A real fan would.
Yeah, whatever. Let's get out of here.
And let's be honest, it's just kinda weird that the Avengers she gets to meet there only have attention for her and not so much for the people around. And everyone around her doesn't really seem to care that they're there. But anyway, if Kamala is able to find all the 5 comics, she can get access to the VIP deck, where she can see a speech by all the Avengers together with this scientist called George Dalton and his colleague Monica Frappuccino or something. Who, by the way, dates the Hulk, which confirms my fear of nice looking girls always choosing to date the buff guys with nice skin colors. Then Iron Man comes flying in, which looks cool and all, but oh no, the Golden Gate Bridge just exploded. If only there was a group of superheroes very nearby that could... I mean, come on, everyone saw this coming, right? Did anyone really not think that this is just elementary school levels of trying to distract the heroes from a bigger thing that's going on? Anyway, you get the chance to play as all of the Avengers here, and it's actually really cool to do. Except for the boss battle you do with Black Widow, because it basically boils down to... Oh, missed me. Oh, you want to try again? You want to try again? Oh. Ooh, missed me again. Oh, come on. You can do better than this. Oh, missed me again. Oh, you suck. Oh, you suck so bad. Ooh, you missed again. When you're finally done goofing around here, you realize...
Damn it, they played us.
Wow, I did not see that coming. So the Chimera gets destroyed, but unfortunately it just has gotten an engine upgrade, which made it not run on fuel, but on this blue crystal looking thing that is apparently very unstable, and when it explodes it can destroy a whole city and change its inhabitants into what is basically Chernobyl victims, but with cool superpowers instead of, well, you know, deadly amounts of radiation. Also, Captain America gets to learn that the good old American standards and a healthy dose of democracy doesn't protect you against outerworldly crystal explosions, so he dies. Or does he? Yeah, I mean, no, he dies. Fast forward 5 years and the superheroes that tried their very best to help everyone get blamed for this whole ordeal, because when Dr. Bruce Banner got asked,
"Do the Avengers pose a danger to society?"
he says,
Yes.
and we're now back with Kamala, who's still a fan of the Avengers, and she wants to find out what happened to them. Also, the scientist from a few minutes back, George Tarleton, managed to steal Miss Cappuccino from the Hulk, and they now started a new company called AIM. Now they're very good at making robots, but they're especially good at making people think Avengers bad, robots good. But apparently they suck at keeping servers secure, since Kamala is able to log into them after 5 seconds of thinking about possible passwords. On the server she finds a video of A-Day, which is what they call the day 5 years ago when everything went to shit. On the video she sees Captain America inside the reactor room that exploded on that day, but she also sees Dr. Tarleton there, and it looks like he's locking Cap into the reactor room. So of course this is great evidence to clear the Avengers name and blame it all on Tarleton. She realizes that the only people who might be able to help her are the Resistance, a group of people who still support the Avengers and stood up against the luring dystopian robot future that AIM wants to create. But the servers go, and she gets in contact with a quote-unquote shameless Elton John fan called Tiny Dancer, who tells her she has to leave. So she does, and since she has to, she might as well start looking for the Resistance. Tiny Dancer tells her to meet in Heroes Park, which is a park dedicated to the Avengers, so needless to say, it's not in great shape. Here she sees a guy which... Wait a second, isn't that the guy who wanted to trade comics on the Chimera? And he gets bullied by this mean guy which... Wait a second, is that not the annoying little douche from the Chimera? Anyway, shit goes down and Kamala uses her powers which she gained at A-Day, which is not good because people who have these powers are now called Inhumans, and the normal, or as I like to say, boring powerless humans, do not like Inhumans. Long story short, Kamala is in trouble, she hits a bunch of robots and gets captured by Monica Espresso and Tarleton, who has a slightly bigger head now. But she escapes and flees to Utah, base of operations for the Resistance. And I can hear you think, you mean a location in Utah, right? Well, no, because as Kamala says it...
The Resistance. This is where they are.
Well yeah, apparently looking at a map of the entire state of Utah works, because she finds the Chimera, which is where the Resistance is supposedly hiding out. Are they really though? Well, no, but she does get a warm welcome by the Hulk, who doesn't really like it when you take the only remaining possession he still has of his dead friend. But all is good when he realizes that beating an underage girl to pulp is kind of inappropriate, so they become friends instead. They make up a plan to get the Chimera working again, but to do that they need the help of Tony Stark. You know, the guy who's not really on speaking terms with Bruce here. Because remember that Bruce said that the Avengers were to blame for everything on A-Day?
Yes.
They still go to his house though. And Tony is not that mad actually.
It was.
Okay, maybe he is. But they make up and Tony agrees to go with them. Now a few conversations and repetitively similar missions on, and they need some sort of part to get the Chimera to work again. Which leads them to a place called the Anthill, a huge underground refugee camp filled with Inhumans led by Hank Pym. For all the non-Marvel fans who might think, who is Hank Pym? He's the original Ant-Man in the comics, and he is played by Michael Douglas in the Ant-Man movies. In the Anthill, Kamala meets a guy who... Wait a second, isn't this just the same guy again who wanted to trade doubles and got beat up in Heroes Park? Well, whoever he is, he says his family is stuck in a prison for Inhumans. So of course Kamala is like, let's get them out of there. So Hank and Bruce are like, no, let's not do that. And she's like, yes, we should. And they are like, no, really, let's not do that, you're not ready. So of course she doesn't go. Except she definitely does, and everything goes to shit, and then she gets captured. Fortunately for her, someone is nearby to help her. A very skilled red-haired hacker and a shameless Elton John fan. And no, it's not Ed Sheeran, but it's Black Widow. So yada yada yada, Black Widow saves the day and defeats Monica Dolce Gusto and her new robots called Adaptoids, and the Chimera works again, yay! Back on the Chimera, Bruce has that awkward, hey, I don't really like the fact that you broke up with me, ran away with my other scientist friend and started a company with him talk. And after not so very long, shit hits the fan, like it always does with these guys, let's be honest. And Monica Latte Macchiato breaks out to be reunited with Tarleton, who at this point is literally just a copy of Sheen in that episode from Jimmy Neutron. So a fight breaks out and the Chimera is losing altitude, but luckily Thor is there out of nowhere, who literally has the power to use lightning as a weapon and is able to get the Chimera back in the air, but apparently isn't strong enough to break through this force field. So you might think that all is good and most of the Avengers are now assembled again and they can fight the bad guys and save the day. But no, they get emotional after they realize that Captain America is the one that broke the reactor instead of Tarleton, so they fight each other. 10 hours of gameplay and Kamala is back where she started. Luckily she's very good at giving speeches, so everyone cries about it.
Altitude, dry ice.
And now everyone is friends again. Time to find out where to go now. Mr. Tim Curry, take it away.
Space!
So one incredibly repetitive flying sequence further, and we're in space now. Will you find the cure for the Inhumans here? Will you find the evidence you need to defeat AIM? No, you actually find Captain America here, because of course he isn't dead. But this not so surprising revelation is at least followed up by 5 sweet, sweet minutes of eye-wateringly good bromance.
Tony? Are you hugging me?
What? No, I just didn't want you to fall.
Then why aren't you letting go?
Hooray! All the Avengers are now assembled, and Tony made shiny new armor for them, and it turns out that the Avengers themselves are too cool to say Avengers Assemble.
Wait, aren't you gonna say the thing?
What?
You know, Avengers Assemble.
Yeah, we don't really say that.
Just be cool, Ken.
Got it.
Which is kinda funny though, not gonna lie. Now it's finally time to defeat AIM. Tarleton,
Don't call me that. George failed. MODOK won't.
so MODOK's head now got so much bigger that it exceeded Monica's self-centeredness, which is great because that makes it really easy to hit. But as soon as you defeat him, it turns out he has a very big friend called a Kree Sentinel. Now can some very big Marvel fan please explain to me if a Kree Sentinel is different than the Sentinels you see in, for instance, Marvel's Ultimate Alliance 3? Because I'm confused. Anyway, Kamala becomes very big and very angry and saves the day, which is way cooler than how I'm telling it right now. And now you finish the story mode, which, quick side note, you cannot replay unless you delete your complete save file. Great job, developers. Now before you actually start to think that this all sounded very negative, it's not that simple. The story itself is really good. Kamala is a very nice main character and I like the way she grew throughout the story. Especially when you realize she's just a young girl who gets thrown into this dangerous world of superheroes and villains, only because of her absolute love for the characters she gets to fight with. It's really nice to see her freak out when she meets her biggest heroes, because I think a lot of us would do the same in real life. Speaking of these characters, they are by far the high point of the game. The voice acting is top notch, but I don't think anyone is surprised by that when people like Nolan North and Troy Baker are involved. For the people who are not familiar with these guys, both are famous for lending their voices in video games. North, for instance, did the voice of Desmond in Assassin's Creed and Nathan Drake in Uncharted, and Troy Baker did Joel in The Last of Us and Booker DeWitt in Bioshock Infinite, among many other things. They really make the story believable in combination with the at some point beautiful graphics and animations. So if you're okay with paying money for this game, if you really want to see the graphics, hear the story, or just really like the characters, then sure, do it. But the whole reason I also have a lot of negativity against this game is the fact that all these good things almost go to waste if you look at the game as a whole. Throughout the nicely animated cutscenes and awesome set pieces, you have these missions where you're on a generic semi-open world, you have a main objective and some side objectives, and after you finish the level you get a percentage of completion, which is in my opinion completely unnecessary. These mission objectives are the same throughout the story, throughout the multiplayer, trailer and throughout the post-game. The only difference is the location where it plays out, but that also just boils down to generic lab in forest, generic lab in snow, generic lab in desert, and that's just it. The game has such a good start when you see the Avengers take on bad guys on the Golden Gate Bridge, and I was expecting those huge kind of set pieces to continue throughout the game. But after that, it's pretty much just the part where Thor lifts up the Chimera and the final battle that really stand out as sort of wow moments. And unfortunately, most of the time you just end up button mashing your way through them. I don't even feel like playing the multiplayer at all, because there is nothing that makes me feel like I want to play this online. For instance, you have these side objectives and they're called objective chains. These are missions focused on specific characters, so you can unlock new skins and abilities for those characters. I was really hoping that these missions were going to delve deeper into the characters as individuals. Maybe see what they did within the 5 years between A-Day and the story. Maybe even go back further and get some missions on how they became the characters that they are. But no, not at all. It's just another generic lab which you button mash through, and then you get some skins or sometimes just gear, which by the way the gear system is completely useless in my opinion. You keep putting these pieces of gear on your hero, but it doesn't really have benefits and it doesn't really feel like they're getting stronger. Which brings me to my biggest criticism of the game. Do you really actually feel like a hero in this game? Let's just go through every character one by one. Thor, God of Thunder, not from Earth, has the ability to literally steer lightning, but as I said during the story, his powers cannot go through a simple force field. The Hulk, said to be one of the strongest characters in the Marvel universe, still just gets the same amount of health as the other heroes and goes down just as easy, while Iron Man is invincible while he's wearing his Hulkbuster armor. Captain America, actually pretty well portrayed in the game, but that is his biggest flaw. He's not strong like the Hulk, so he cannot break walls. He cannot fly like Thor and Iron Man, so he can't reach high platforms. And he cannot hack like Black Widow. This doesn't get compensated by him being extra strong or anything, so he's basically just a fighting dude with a shield without any useful abilities. In comparison, Iron Man can do all of these things, but when you're flying with him, it just really feels like you're casually making your way to the supermarket or something. According to the lore, he is supposed to be able to fly as fast as a jet plane, and when you're watching the movies you can see exactly that. Now the last two characters, I do think they're very well portrayed, like Black Widow, but that is because her abilities are very useful and her fighting feels so much more fluid than the other heroes. And then of course you have Kamala, or Miss Marvel, whichever one you want to call her. She is just fine strength wise and she has some cool abilities, but at the end you probably played as her the most, so she's pretty strong, while you would in fact expect her to still be just a little girl fighting with the Avengers, no matter how much she has learned along the way. It's just a shame that when you play games like Call of Duty, you feel like this unstoppable super soldier at times, while it's not supposed to be like that. While when you're actually playing as a superhero, it feels like you are just another character but in shiny armor. Now, as I said in the intro, I had a lot of issues with the game that made it downright unplayable. Upgrading my RAM memory fixed a lot, but not everything. After I could just play the game on a normal frame rate, I still had a lot of crashes. In the first mission I had this weird color glitch. Sometimes cutscenes wouldn't start playing, etc, etc, etc. As far as I know, the developers are working really hard to fix a lot of these things. More content is at least added because of the whole live server stuff, and if you look at the story you can see that this team really has a lot of love for this project and the source material. So I just hope that it will get better in the future. But now it's time for the Easter eggs, and I'm happy to say this game does not disappoint. First of all, I want to talk about the characters, or actually references to characters in this universe that are mentioned in the game. Two of them are very prominently present. First of all, Captain Marvel. Not only does Kamala have a lot of posters of the character in her room, in several different iconic outfits, and this one in her room is a very likely model for an upcoming edition of her as a playable character, but you can also hear Captain America mention her in the first mission.
I'm guessing you're a Captain Marvel fan. She's off planet, but she would have liked to meet you.
And see a drawing on the wall near Kamala's house in the second mission. The second character is Clint Barton, better known to fans as Hawkeye. Hawkeye has already been announced to be one of the following playable characters, but you can find some details to his introduction in the game. The most notable one is that every character that is already in the game has their own private quarters inside the Chimera. Clint also has his private quarter inside the Chimera. However, this is the only one you cannot go into at this point in the game. Apart from that, in the mission where you go into the Olympia archive, you can find a poster of the Avengers. Clint can also be seen on this poster. Another character reference can be found in the mission where you find Tony in his home. When Tony puts on the first part of his DIY sort of suit, the camera pans out around the wooden pillar. On this pillar you can find a little note. This is actually a business card for Jessica Jones's investigation bureau. Jessica Jones is of course another Marvel character who also had her own Netflix series. Another character with its own Netflix series can be found sort of in the Eastern Seaboard mission. Here you can find a building of Meacham Industries. This company is owned by Harold Meacham, a villain of the Marvel character Iron Fist. In the same mission you can find the Chemco building. This is the headquarters of the Any-Men, a weird group of human-animal hybrids who are known as enemies of both the Avengers and Daredevil. In the Chimera, after unlocking Captain America, you can go into his private quarters and see a picture. In this picture you can see Peggy Carter, who was Captain America's love interest in many Marvel stories, including the movies, and of course Agent Carter also had her own TV series. In the first mission where you play as Hulk, you can see some sort of capsules where AIM captured Inhumans. Some of them have names on them. One of the names is Dee Johnson and another is Naya. Dee Johnson is actually Daisy Johnson, better known as Quake, and Naya is a new human, which is not an Inhuman but different, but I'm getting way too deep into the Marvel lore and I don't really understand it anymore. In the first mission on the Chimera, you can find Captain America's first shield and outfit, which is cool in itself, but you can also read a lot of information about his shield. Most notably, that Princess Shuri helped developing the shield. Princess Shuri is actually the sister of Marvel character Black Panther. Black Panther is also going to be a playable character in the game, but since his sister was really cool in the movies, maybe she'll be playable as well? Finally, as far as characters go, on the same mission you can find several arcade cabinets. Most of them contain characters that are already in the game, like Captain America and Black Widow, but one of them is notable. One of the cabinets is a game for Captain America and Falcon. Falcon has also been rumored to be added in the roster of playable characters. So having done all the characters, I wanted to go on with listing all the stuff I could find that references the movies and comics directly. Starting off with the speech Kamala gives to the bullies.
When the mob and the press and the whole world tell you to move, you plant yourself like a tree beside the river of truth. And you say no. You move.
This is a speech that references one of Captain America's comics directly, but is also told by Sharon Carter on Peggy Carter's funeral in Captain America Civil War. Directly at the start of the first mission you can find a shawarma tent. This is a reference to a post-credit scene in the first Avengers film, where the heroes go to a shawarma tent. When you are playing with or as the Hulk, and he goes down in battle, you can hear Thor say the following. This is also a reference to a scene in the first Avengers movie.
I have an army. We have a Hulk.
In the Eastern Seaboard mission, you can find the head office of the Daily Bugle. Now this is a reference to the comics since it's the newspaper that Spider-Man worked for. But it got more well known after the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, especially since it sparked a lot of memes of J. Jonah Jameson. You know, this guy. Also, it can be said that Phil Sheldon, main reporter in this game, is a reference to J. Jonah Jameson, since they have a similar job. Back again in the first mission, you can interact with a hologram of Iron Man. It says the following.
I am Iron Man.
Which of course is a reference to the first Iron Man movie, but is said by Iron Man throughout the MCU movie titles and also throughout this game.
I am Iron Man.
However, Kamala doesn't seem to be that interested in it after a while.
I am Iron Man. I am Iron Man.
Yeah, we get it.
Speaking of Iron Man, in a mission where you first play as him after him joining the playable characters, he says,
We can if we overcharge the suit by 300% and take the direct route.
which might be a reference to this scene from the first Avengers movie.
Power at 400% capacity.
How about that?
What I do know for sure is a reference is what he says directly after.
Sir, you might literally explode, and that canyon is treacherous.
Sure, but I feel the need for speed. Do it, Goose, and play something fast.
This is a reference to the movie Top Gun.
I feel the need for speed.
Which, by the way, is a nice segue into the last category of Easter eggs. Every other thing I could find. Now, Iron Man has a lot of one-liners he says throughout the game. I'm not going to list all of them, but I did want to let you guys hear some of them. For instance, this reference to the Ghostbusters.
Who you gonna call? Hulkbuster!
And this reference to Monty Python. After going out of Kamala's room, you'll use a zipline several times. However, if you wait directly after you got out of her headquarters, you can see a convenience store called Circle Q. This store is often used by Kamala, or Ms. Marvel, as her unofficial headquarters in the comics, since some of her friends work there. Now everybody probably already knows about the next group of findable things, but I still wanted to include them. Inside the Olympia archives you can find several objects that reference Marvel characters. You can find Thor's cup, which can later be found in his private quarters. Cap's first shield, which as I said can also be seen in the first mission. You can find Iron Man's Mark I armor, which can also be found in the first mission. And it can be equipped as an outfit, but only if you pre-ordered the game. Yeah. Pre-ordering. You can find the first Stark Gold here, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s West Coast office, which you can also see in the intro, and a guitar which Pepper Potts, Tony's wife, gave to him. In Black Widow's room, you find this tiny music box with a ballerina in it. This is of course a reference to her origin, because she has grown up in a place called the Red Room, where she got taught to be pretty much a super spy. Last up, some Captain America stuff. When Kamala interacts with Cap's shield for the first time, she says this.
So awesome. This thing belongs in a museum.
Which is a reference to this scene from Indiana Jones.
This is the second time I've had to reclaim my property from you.
That belongs in a museum.
So do you.
When you play as Cap and you go into several different private quarters, Cap pretty much just walks in. However, he doesn't do that in Kamala's room. Here he knocks first because he's a stand-up guy and doesn't just walk into underage girls' rooms. And finally, this is probably the most well-known Easter egg in this game. When going into Thor's room, you can find his hammer Mjolnir. Every character can interact with it, however, their reactions will be different. Thor will of course lift it up, but the other characters are not able to, because you have to be worthy to lift the hammer. But there is one character who can lift it, well, almost at least. This is of course a reference to this scene from Avengers Age of Ultron.
Come on, Cap.
This was of course a small tease to what was to come in Avengers Endgame, so maybe it teases something in this game as well. And that's pretty much everything I wanted to say about this game and everything I could find in this game. Overall, I did enjoy the game, but it's just frustrating to see so much potential in something and then seeing it turn out like this. Pretty much a very pretty looking button mashing game. Speaking of button mashing, please button mash that like and subscribe button, and maybe turn on notifications for my videos, and let me know what you think of this video down in the comments. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!